Mill Valley is known as one of the best places to live in California, so does Healdsburg even compare? And which is better? I moved to Mill Valley straight from London and it was the perfect place to live for nearly 10 years. I could commute into San Francisco to my marketing agency and live in a place that I felt like I was on holiday. Compared to Healdsburg, Mill Valley probably has a better outdoor lifestyle, better schools, and has certainly got better access to San Francisco and to an international airport. I now live in Healdsburg, but did I make a mistake living in Mill Valley for as long as I did? Or did I make a mistake leaving? We hear about lots of people looking to move to Healdsburg, but I also know people who've bought a place up here and are now selling to retrench back to Mill Valley. There are great things about both places, but what are the pros and cons of both, and which do you think you would prefer? So if you don't know me, my name is David Hargreaves, founder of Modern Living Sonoma. In just 3 years, I've become a top 5 agent in Healdsburg, helping over 50 people just like you from the Bay Area. But you don't care about me, so let's talk about Healdsburg and why I moved here permanently and whether I would ever consider moving back to Mill Valley. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it and subscribe to get more videos like this. Before I moved to Mill Valley 15 years ago, I lived in a busy London neighbourhood in a big Victorian house. I sold my marketing agency, got the chance to move to either San Francisco or New York to run the North American offices. It was an easy decision for me and probably an easier one for my wife. We decided on San Francisco because of the access to the outdoors and of course the California weather. I come from Manchester, one of the rainiest parts of the UK, so following the California dream certainly felt very exotic. As we started looking where we wanted to live, we quickly settled on Mill Valley. It was an easy commute to the city, but it also felt like a vacation destination with all the hiking and biking in and around Mount Tam. Within 6 weeks of moving here, we'd bought a house just as the financial markets were crashing around us in May 2008. We were certainly underwater for a while on our property, but it turns out to be one of the best property investments we've ever made. So why was Mill Valley the perfect place for us to live? A big factor was the easy commute. My wife and I both worked in the city, so we commuted every day. It was easy to jump on the number 4 bus and get into the city in about 45 minutes. On the way home, we would leave the city, go through the Robin Williams tunnel, and it felt like we were entering a different world. The sun was shining, Mount Tam loomed large, and our house was surrounded by redwoods overlooking Richardson Bay. As people who love the outdoors, it was just totally different from London. And yet we had a really easy commute. It was the best of both worlds. Fast forward to today. I now work in real estate and my wife is still a CFO but is now fully remote, so neither of us has to go into San Francisco. I often ask myself, if neither of us ever needed to commute to San Francisco, would we have actually lived in Mill Valley in the first place? If you aren't tethered to an office, you've just got a lot more options about where you choose to live. I know for a fact over the past few years, a lot of people have made their second home their only home. If access to San Francisco is important to you, then Mill Valley is clearly a better option. What about the kids and schools? My wife and I, we wanted kids, but it never worked out, so it's hard for me to think about how that would have changed things for us. That being said, Mill Valley schools are second to none, so they're certainly a big draw for a lot of people. Quite a few people move from San Francisco or even from Sausalito just down the road to Mill Valley because the schools are so good there. So there's no question that if schools were important, living in Mill Valley is a big plus. That being said, the schools in Healdsburg have a great reputation, so if schools are important to you, that's definitely not a reason to rule out Healdsburg. What about the food and wine and how does that compare? The great thing about Mill Valley is you have access to a lot of great restaurants in San Francisco. However, the reality for us is that we rarely made the effort to go into San Francisco for dinner. Once we crossed the Golden Gate Bridge, we didn't often feel the urge to go back on a Friday or a Saturday night into San Francisco. Mill Valley does have a number of great restaurants, as well as more casual places such as Joe's Taco Lounge for a quick bite to eat. So we were very lucky. That being said, it definitely doesn't have too many wineries. The food scene in Healdsburg is definitely second to none and continuing to evolve very quickly. The number of great restaurants are too many to mention here, but the flagship restaurant is obviously Single Thread with its Michelin 3 stars. As well as high-end restaurants, there's also a number of great options for more casual dining, with the southern cuisine of Lo and Behold, which is one of my new favourites, and also a number of great Mexican restaurants. I haven't even touched on the wineries, but if wine tasting, wine events, visiting wineries is a passion of yours, then Healdsburg definitely wins hands down. So how does the outdoor lifestyle compare? This is definitely a hard one. Both Healdsburg and Mill Valley have an awful lot to offer. Mill Valley has Mount Tam as its playground. If mountain biking is your thing, you really can't beat Marin, the home of mountain biking itself. And then just half an hour away, you've got Point Reyes, which is an incredible national seashore with amazing kayaking, camping, hiking, biking, pretty much everything you could ask for. But then Healdsburg also has a lot to offer. In Healdsburg, the cycling is probably not quite as varied, but if you love road biking, there are numerous classic rides, both inland around the vineyards and then longer rides out to the coast through the coastal redwoods. The other important difference is the weather. In Healdsburg in the summer, you really are limited to doing exercise either at the beginning or at the end of the day, as it's often just too hot in the middle of the day. That being said, unless you head out to the coast, you don't have to wrap up warm every time you set off for a hike or ride in summer, which is certainly not the case in Mill Valley. If I had to choose one, I'd probably choose Mill Valley and Marin because of the variety of cycling and hiking, which combines, access to the ocean on your doorstep with the option to cycle up Mount Tam, a 2,500 foot mountain right on your doorstep. As a Brit, it's hard for me not to discuss the weather in more detail. The difference in the weather when moving from London to Mill Valley was amazing. For the first time in my life, I could plan to do something in the knowledge that in summer it wouldn't rain. We could plan a barbecue 2 months in advance versus 2 hours in London. However, one of the downsides of living in Mill Valley was the fact that while we had a really nice outdoor seating area with a fire pit, grill, we were rarely able to use it in the evening. It was just too cold in the evenings to entertain friends for dinner outside. Healdsburg, on the other hand, is very different. From May to September, we pretty much live outside in the evening. We have drinks before dinner, cook, eat outside pretty much every night. The downside is that it's often too hot to do any meaningful exercise in the middle of the day. That's actually fine with me, as I like to get up early and get my exercise done before 11 AM. The other thing I really like about the weather in Healdsburg is the fact that we get the different seasons with, the vines looking truly spectacular in the fall. It does mean we have to put up with the cold mornings in winter, but they say there's no such thing as cold weather, just inappropriate clothing. If I had to choose one, I'd choose Healdsburg for the weather, every time. The other thing which feels different is the pace of life. Both Healdsburg and Mill Valley do have a great sense of community. They're just very different. I should say I didn't live in downtown Mill Valley, whereas I do live in downtown Healdsburg, so that probably makes a difference to my experience of living in both places. There's no question the demographic in Healdsburg is that much older. There are a lot of people who live here and have either retired or what I would call work optional. As such, it doesn't feel like a place where everyone's charging around at 1,000,000 miles an hour trying to get the next deal. There isn't the same intensity about people's work and careers as you get in Mill Valley. It's very easy to be friends with someone here without ever knowing what they actually do for a living, which I really like. In Mill Valley, it feels like what you do for a living comes up very quickly in the conversation. Interestingly, the populations are actually very similar in size. Healdsburg is just under 12,000 people compared to Mill Valley's 14,500. And yet Healdsburg feels a much smaller town. Mill Valley does have a large unincorporated population, but then Greater Healdsburg area extends for, over 150 miles. So they're both similar in that respect. Despite being similar in size, it feels like the community in Healdsburg is just that much tighter. Everyone feels part of it and contributes to it. It's hard to put your finger on. I definitely prefer the people and pace of life in Healdsburg, but then again, I am a little bit older and I've had my days of living life at 100 miles an hour. So which is the best place to live? If you need to go to an office in San Francisco for anything more than probably 2 days a week or need to travel every week with work, it probably isn't realistic to live in Healdsburg full time. Similarly, if you have children in the Mill Valley school system, it will be a big shift to change schools. However, if you are flexible about where you can work from, love food and wine, and are looking to move to a place where it's easy to meet people and a place where you can have a slightly more relaxed lifestyle, it really doesn't get much better than Healdsburg. For this stage of my life, Healdsburg wins hands down. If you are interested in buying a second home or moving to Healdsburg full time, please do get in touch. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, go well.